Welcome to Cobra Kai Canada. I am your host, Hilary, and it's good to be back. Today I have three special guests. The creators of Cobra Kai, Jon Hurwitz, Josh Heald, and Hayden Schlossberg. Welcome to the show, guys.
Good to be here.
Hey, okay, so thank you. So guys, before we get started, I want to do something, and I can't believe I'm doing this. So I'm going to apologize to my family and friends at first because I am a Blue Jays fan. I will never jump ship. Jon, I've talked to you a couple times about the New York Mets, and I know you're a big Mets fan. So today only, I'm only doing this once because I bought the damn thing. So I will be wearing a New York Mets jersey just for today.
Nice. One day only. All right. Well, let's see. We'll see if the Mets can win you over in the long term. We'll find out.
That'll be hard to do. And Hayden and Josh, I don't know if you guys are baseball fans or sport fans, so I do apologize.
I've been rooting for the Mets with Jon for a long time, and I know Ralph is going to like this too. So.
Oh, okay. There you go, man. But yeah, I am a Blue Jays fan. So, obviously being born and raised here in Canada near Toronto. So one-time thing, Canadian hospitality. How does it look, Jon?
It looks amazing. It's wonderful.
All right, man. So let's get started here, guys. So I want to congratulate you guys on your new show, Obliterated. Number one show. Yeah, for sure. Netflix in the United States and around the world. You guys had me laughing the whole time with this show. You guys had a great cast. It's funny. It's got action. It's got it all. It's like one of those things where that saying, when I just seen it all kind of thing. No, you haven't seen it all until you watched Obliterated. That's for sure. So my question to you guys is, did you guys originally want to make this a movie before you guys made it into a show?
Yeah, so originally this was a movie idea. This was something that we've been talking about for over a decade at this point. Mm-hmm. It was originally, we were trying to figure out action comedies that we would be really excited about. We wanted something that, it was the concept that brought that comedy, that it was an action concept, but with a twist that brought the comedy, as opposed to it just be like, oh, well, this funny actor and this funny actor are in this thing. And whenever we tried writing it, the frustrating thing that we found was we really wanted to spend time with the whole team of heroes. We didn't want to just tell the story of one action hero or two action heroes. We wanted to tell the story of a team that's able to save Las Vegas. And whenever we'd write, there was never the real estate in a script to dive deep into these other characters. So after our experience making Cobra Kai and having so much fun being able to work with a large ensemble cast on that, we thought, why not turn this into a TV series? Because it's something that, this kind of raunchy, crazy R-rated comedy has never been done in a TV format before. And we had a blast making it.
Anything you guys want to add, Josh or Hayden?
No, that's the gist.
For sure. Now, is there any scenes in that show, perhaps based on real, true live events that may have happened to you or someone because there was some crazy stuff in that show?
It's all taken from, there's exaggerated versions of things. We've all been in situations of mixed company where, someone says the wrong thing to somebody. We've all, been certainly in a position where either we or somebody we know have drank too much and then, had to figure out something. We've all lost, a friend while being out, at night and you can't find them. All these things, get heightened when the state of the world is on the line. So we just kind of pushed the envelope, took, grounded real world problems that anybody who has had a sloppy night out has experienced. And by adding the stakes of, if you don't get, your stuff together, the city's going to blow up. It really just kind of pushes it to the limit.
There's one specific thing. I mean, just to give you an example of a specific thing we took from our lives is we were at a bachelor party in Vegas, however many years ago, the three of us and a bunch of our guy friends. And one of the guys, their wife was calling and they were just on the phone. And it was one of those things where it's like, hey, this is our bachelor party. What are you doing here? And one of one of our random friends like grabbed the phone. I was like, listen, so and so's wife, we're having a good time here. Like he's having a good time. Why don't you just like let him alone for a little bit? And it just totally backfired.
Oh boy.
So like Knight does that to Paul in the first episode. That's an example of like the kind of bachelor party hijinks that we've encountered.
Yeah, like as I was watching it just before we got on, I told you guys I binged it twice, and I saw some crazy stuff, obviously, from like Trunk being interrogated when they had started that device in his pee hole. I was like, oh my God, this is wild. And another scene with Trunk is like when he was beating someone with I think it was one of the villains, right? When he was beating him with the drumstick, I was just laughing. You just don't see that on TV, right? I know it's just like, a drumstick, but I thought it was hilarious, man. It's just like, there's a lot of stuff in there you got to really like, pay attention to, and you just laugh your ass off, man.
Both of those things did happen to us. Those were taken directly from our lives.
So now with the popular reception the show has like already received, are you guys open to possibly doing season 2, but like maybe in like a different venue, perhaps like outside the United States or something like that? Or
I mean, we love the idea of doing more seasons of Obliterated. The first one is, we view that first season as a supersized sort of summer blockbuster action movie / summer blockbuster R-rated comedy from the past, and they're merged together, and they became a series. We'd love to do another season elsewhere. Are you lobbying for Toronto? Is that what's happening right now?
That was the main goal. Smart guy, man. You're really catching on quickly. Yeah.
I always heard Montreal was like the bachelor party kind of place, though. Am I right? I don't know. I've only been there once, but I was much younger.
I'll be honest with you. Montreal's definitely on the list. Toronto's on the list, and Vancouver's on the list for sure too. Those would be like, the 3 cities I would definitely. Well, Vancouver, they do a lot of shows out there. So yeah, but Toronto would be pretty cool. I like the fact that you guys went back to your like old comedy roots. And speaking of like old comedy roots, 2 films that's been played in my house like thousands of times is Heald and Kumar and Hot Tub Time Machine, obviously. And I've been following you guys since like 2004 when Heald and Kumar White Castle was released. And I found something interesting as well is Heald and Kumar, you guys filmed in Toronto. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We did.
And Hot Tub Time Machine was filmed in Vancouver.
It was Vancouver and also over in Fernie, British Columbia.
Yeah. Can you guys like tell me a little about your experience filming it here in Canada, and why did you guys decide to film here in Canada?
Well, it's always tax incentives. It's always, there's always a financial component to it. And I think prior to 2010, Canada was a very attractive place to shoot, for financial reasons. And I guess to an extent it still is, but there's been a lot more competition in the United States. Georgia, Atlanta, New Orleans and Louisiana have like very and New Mexico. So all the places that we've shot tend to be like where you get a lot of bang for your buck. Sure. I don't know if those places like Atlanta or New Orleans were as popular or as tax friendly as Canada was back in the day. You just always heard like, oh, you want to save money, instead of shooting in the United States, shoot it in Canada. But we had such a great time there because beyond like, the people being great, it's just like, you in Toronto, you have like a giant, international city. And Josh can speak to what it was like, shooting Hot Tub, where he was. But it's, you have a lot of experienced crew up there too. So it's a good place to shoot.
Yeah, for Hot Tub, I mean, we were chasing the snow. It was a production that went into production.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it was like spring of 2009. And by the time we were shooting, the stuff on the slopes, it was May. It started in Vancouver, that's where, a lot of our stages and locations were. But then the whole production moved to Fernie for like a month. And even then it was cold, but there were days where it wasn't cold enough. So we were making snow. I mean, MGM was at a place where they were, you know, they were in like $5 billion worth of debt, and they had a hole that, you know, seemed like they were never going to get out of. And they had time to make one movie, and they threw so many resources at this movie. It was amazing. Just the music, the amount of money they spent on the snow. After that, you know, we ended up going to Big Bear in December to do like a day of reshoots. Like we were just constantly chasing the snow. But I remember just living at the ski lodge in Fernie while we were making the movie. It was like we were living the Hot Tub Time Machine story while making it.
Oh yeah, I love that movie. The nostalgia on it was just phenomenal. And I'm glad you guys had a good experience in Canada. I love to hear stuff like that. And now White Castle, because we don't have a White Castle chain of restaurants here, I heard you guys literally had to build one from scratch. Tell me about that.
So we took there was a storefront that we turned into a White Castle. Yeah. And so it like when you were driving down the road, you saw the White Castle there, and it looked like there was an actual White Castle. And all day long, we just remember people pulling over thinking that a White Castle was there. There, you know, some people in Canada knew about White Castle and were excited that, oh, Toronto got a White Castle. And it was just frustrating people all day long. It was a hilarious day.
Fun fact, we still don't have a White Castle, but I heard you can just buy like the frozen burgers at like the grocery stores and stuff like that. Why they don't have a White Castle, I have no idea, but that's the fun fact for us. We still don't have one, even after Heald and Kumar. Go figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, one question I wanted to ask you guys, obviously, I know you guys are obviously fans of the Karate Kid, and you know you guys grew up in the '80s just like I did. And my questions to you guys is, what initially triggered where you guys were like, "Hey, let's make this show call it Cobra Kai"? And was it hard to convince Ralph and Billy at first when you guys kind of pitched the idea to them? How did that go down? Give me like a little play-by-play.
You know, it's a movie that we just have always loved, grew up with. You know, we were kids when it came out. We saw the Karate Kid in theaters. It was a shared experience by the time we all met each other, you know, during senior year of high school, freshman year of college. It was one of those seminal movies, you know, of our childhoods that we bonded over. And as we got older, the idea of this karate gang, you know, on motorcycles started to take on this kind of funny thing, you know, that it was always there in plain sight, and it felt scary as a kid. But once we were like 20 years old, it was kind of a little bit ridiculous that there was, you know, a karate gang tormenting this kid. And we started to kind of celebrate the idea of that karate gang. We actually all dressed up as Cobra Kais for one of our first Halloweens when we moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, that's great.
And we just talked about the fantasy of revisiting that story, but from a grown-up Johnny Lawrence perspective. You know, we were guys who are always character focused and, you know, focused on high school dynamics. If you look at all of our work, it usually boils down to, you know, high school politics in terms of, you know, popularity contests and nerds and jocks, and the idea of what happened to that high school bully, you know, later in life. It seemed unrealistic, just knowing the movie business in the early, you know, years of the millennia. And as time went on, you know, when it kind of hit the, you know, 2016, we started to see that streamers were taking on nostalgia in ways that were big and robust. You know, a show like Fuller House, you know, came out, and we realized this might be the right time to do this idea, and we can do it in a really kind of elongated way where we can not just focus on that one story. We can use that Johnny story as your eyes in, as your way into this world, but really, you know, kind of relaunch the Karate Kid universe in the way that, you know, it should be. And we approached Sony about it, and they said, get the guys. And, you know, I already knew Billy from Hot Tub, and we had a relationship with him, and we pitched him the story and kind of blew his mind. We didn't know Ralph, so we got in touch with you know, his agent and manager, and we flew ourselves to New York to introduce ourselves. And we had an amazing 4-hour lunch with him where we pitched him the story numerous times. He asked a ton of questions. We had thought about this for 40 years at that point. And we were able to kind of, form that bond that has just only grown from there. And once they were on board, it just shot to the moon. We pitched it everywhere in town. And a lot of places were vying for it. And YouTube at the time was getting frisky. And for that one day, at least, they decided they were going to take on Netflix and rule the world. And that was the day that they acquired Cobra Kai. And if not for them, I don't think the show would be what it is. They really let us in those early days
for
have
sure.
a huge just creative freedom to make the show as different as it is and as singular as it is. Interesting.
Yeah. So like, you guys needed Ralph and Billy in order for this show to work. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And the crazy thing was, like, from a studio standpoint, nobody really kind of appreciated that. Everything in Hollywood is, what have you done for me lately? At least back then. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing like Night Court on TV, and I think Cobra Kai is part of the trend of like, oh, let's resurrect things. But it's like, okay, what was the last movie they were in, and how did it do? And for Ralph and Billy, it had been years, and so it didn't mean anything from a Hollywood standpoint. But I think we knew culturally how big Karate Kid was. So there's this like period of time, the moment that Ralph signed on, and we're like, I think the three of us were like, we have this franchise, like we have this right now, and everyone else is probably thinking, oh, we're going to make it a sketch, or we're going to do something that's just kind of kitschy and whatever. And we're just like, no, like the Karate Kid it may not be box office wise a big wars, but it's almost as recognizable for a certain generation. It's a huge epic, story for a generation of kids around the world, and one that parents give to their kids. It's like, okay, well, what do you want to show your kids? You show them Snow White, Pinocchio, the Karate Kid. So we're like, well, we have these characters and this world, and we knew that there was a huge potential there. And I just remember when we were making the first season, we're like, people don't know what this is yet. Like, we're treating it like the way JJ should be treating Star Wars right now, like that this is an enormous, an enormous event. And that's how we treated it. Like, it's like, okay, you know what? It's been 30 whatever years, and we're back. And Hollywood was like, at the time, just like, okay, like what, it's IP. They don't know what to expect, and we just went for like, we try to take advantage of it as much as possible.
Well, there's so many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to IP now. You see people treat, comic books that I've never heard of in such a, well, we have to do this, and we have to make sure the tone hits this, and you have to make sure that the story leads into this other, spin-off of this second season of this other thing. There were no cooks in this kitchen besides us, which was just I don't know that there'll ever be anything like that again, because I think this was a moment, before, everything got moved to streaming, and all of a sudden, everyone looked in their closet in their attic to see, what dusty IP we have that we can, put a shine on. This was us finding gold and being the only, Rumpelstiltskins to spin it into something.
So my next question to you guys is, why and what made you guys decide that season 6 would be the final chapter, considering the show could easily go on for like 10 seasons, especially with the massive fan base and popularity of the show worldwide?
We from the beginning, we wanted this to be a kind of close-ended story in a sense, with Johnny Lawrence's journey on this show, with him being at the center of it. As we've written it, you fall in love with more and more characters. There's the new characters, and then the things that we've done with the characters from the past. And we love, taking the audience on this journey. We felt like where we are in the story, and the kids are, entering their senior year of high school on the show and all that. It felt like it was a real good time to kind of bring this in for a landing. But, our goal is to, keep these characters interesting for people, so that when the series ends, you never know where the future could go. Whether whether there are spinoffs, whether we return to a version of this show in the future, anything is on the table. But for Cobra Kai proper, I think we're going to be finishing this up in a way that it's how we intended from the beginning, with new flourishes that have come up along the way.
Oh, for sure.
It's also, you try to, like, our whole thing was each season being like, its own movie and a sequel that tries to like take it to another level. And you saw what the last season was with the sword on size fight,
Of course, yeah.
I think we knew early on that it was like, okay, well, where can we take this? And we're like, well, maybe an international tournament or something that's bigger than what we've seen. And when you start to think about, like, okay, well, what's bigger than that? You get into the outer space stuff and intergalactic tournaments. I think we were like, okay, we're not afraid to go to those like big places, because in Karate Kid 2, like, it was a life or death battle or whatever. Yeah. But it's just you run the risk of like trying to top yourself in a way that is like a little too crazy. And I think we're still in that place of like, okay, this is a fun thing. Like, kids do, like, teenagers and whatever do get into these like international tournaments or into these big things. They break outside of their hometown and go travel to other states and other places to compete with the best of the best. And there's something that's real about that, but also heightens and takes it to a next level. And we just felt like that's probably like the best way to, end it, in terms of the scope.
Well, Cobra Kai has also always been a high school show, and we've managed to keep these kids in high school, for 6 seasons by condensing our storyline. If you look at every season outside of our first one, the storyline is so tight. It's like a season. It's like fall, or summer. So after kind of getting them into their junior year, we've slowed way down. But there's only so much stretching you can do, and there's something about that high school experience that that kind of rings true for the original movie.
Interesting. Just because you Hayden brought up World Tournament, obviously the Sekai Taikai, that will be one of the major themes going into season 6, and that's what I'm really looking forward to. And I hate to ask you guys this, but I gotta ask, and I'm just hoping, will we finally see a contingent of Canadian fighters? I gotta ask, man, because we got Koreans in there, we got Japanese, we got Americans. So I'm like, hey, we want a piece of Cobra Kai. Why are we left out? So
we'll have to see. It's there's not this is the best of the best of the best. So if they didn't make it, it's because it's tough to get in, but there will be multiple countries represented.
That's awesome. And as we approach the final seasons, can you tell us, like, Canadian viewers and viewers worldwide, in a brief nutshell, what can we expect for season 6?
No.
Fair enough.
All we could say is, we're continuing the stories that you've been loving for the first 5 seasons. It's going to be fun. It's going to be spectacular. It's going to have, it's going to be fulfilling. It's going to be really fulfilling to see these characters kind of on their, on their journey in this final season. You get to see how, the senior year of high school and what to make of Johnny and Daniel in their future.
That's awesome. I don't want to take up too much your guys' time, because I know you guys are strapped for time. I do want to thank you guys so much for coming on here. Next month will be my 2-year anniversary since I started this podcast. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've done 20 podcast interviews, thanks to you guys for the creation of Cobra Kai, obviously. You guys are 21. You guys obviously had such a big influence on my life, even growing up. As I said earlier, I followed you guys. I've been following you guys since 2004 with Heald and Kumar, and obviously Hot Tub Time Machine. Those movies are constantly played in my house still. And I hope there will be like a future Heald and Kumar. I would like to see that. We haven't seen a good stoner comedy in years, at least that I can recall. And yeah, man, I just want to thank you guys for, bringing the laughs to my house and just, teaching me how to have a good time.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate all the support. We see all the love that you have for the shows, and the countdown to Obliterated was a lot of fun for us. So yeah, thank you for all the work that you put in there, and to all the listeners out there. We appreciate everyone loving Cobra Kai, and check out Obliterated if you haven't. It's a lot closer to the Heald and Kumars and the Hot Tub Time Machines of the world than it is to Cobra Kai in certain ways. So not family viewing entertainment, but great characters and a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to say, it's like when we were making Heald and Kumar and Hot Tub, it was kind of pre-social media, or just in the advent of that. And it's so fun now. You put this out. We clearly are fans ourselves of these types of movies, and you put it out there, and you hope that you get a fan base. But now you get like the type of fan base that does what you're doing, which is so much fun. And we'll always like see how fans are reacting, and to see someone like you, like having a podcast and doing interviews. It's interesting to us because sometimes we don't get to talk to the actors in depth because we're so busy, and you actually listen in and learn things. And so keep it up. We really appreciate it. It makes our day.
Oh, for sure. It's no problem at all. It's funny because Terrence actually messaged me when I just did this funny like little chips commercial for Obliterated. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I think I did see that. That was great. That was great.
And he messaged me and he was just dying. He said that was like the funniest thing ever, right? And this is just prior to like Obliterated being released, right? So like obviously I had no idea about like what to expect for the show, so I just tried to be creative, right? And he was just laughing. He loved it, and everybody liked. I just did that for fun because of the strike. I couldn't do any podcast interviews, obviously. So that's why I was like, all right, let me be a little creative and just do like these little like artworks and just post them, and just to keep my mind busy and everybody else occupied, right? So that was the whole thing behind that stuff. And like I said earlier, like obviously thanks to you guys, I met so many of the cast members that came on here. I like to, they're dear friends of mine too, especially Sean Kanan. We became real good friends off this podcast. We talk actually once every like month and stuff, just, keep check on each other. Hey, how you doing kind of thing. I talked to a few people from the Karate Kid trilogy, like Daryl Vidal. He invited me to come there and do Filipino stick fighting out in California. I still didn't take that offer, but I will do it one day, hopefully. And so this is all thanks to you guys, and I really, really appreciate it. And I hope this is one of many interviews. Hopefully, maybe after the release of season 6, and we can just talk and have nothing to like kind of like hide anywhere. We can just talk at free will.
Sure.
Awesome.
And that is it for Cobra Kai Canada. And thanks for watching, and thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Awesome.